Lisa Carter rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the clock on her computer screen. 3 a.m. Another quiet night shift at the Earth Defense Command listening post in Colorado Springs. She had been monitoring deep space radio signals for 6 months now, and most nights were the same. Static, background radiation, and the occasional burst from a distant star. She sipped her coffee and adjusted her headphones. The large room was mostly empty except for 2 other technicians working at different stations. The soft hum of computers and the gentle beeping of monitoring equipment filled the air. Lisa liked the night shift. It was peaceful, and she could focus on her work without interruptions. Suddenly, her computer screen lit up with new activity. A signal was coming through, on the deep space array. Lisa sat up straighter and began checking the readings. This was different from anything she had seen before. The signal was clearly artificial, not natural radio waves from space. "Hey, Mike," she called to her colleague at the next station. "Are you seeing this on Channel 7? Mike Rodriguez looked over at his own screen and frowned. "Yeah, I see. That's weird. The pattern is too regular to be natural." Lisa began recording the signal and running it through the computer analysis programs. The signal was strong and appeared to be some kind of message, but it was unlike any human communication system. The patterns were complex and seemed to repeat in certain ways. "This could be it," Lisa whispered to herself. "This could be first contact." She immediately called her supervisor, Captain Ryan Burke, who was sleeping in the quarters upstairs. The phone rang several times before his tired voice answered. "Burke here. This better be important, Carter." "Sir, I think you need to come down here right away. We're receiving what appears to be an artificial signal from deep space. It's definitely not human." There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then Captain Burke's voice became much more alert. "I'll be right down. Don't touch anything and keep recording." Within 5 minutes, Captain Burke was in the monitoring room, still buttoning his uniform shirt. He looked at Lisa's screen and saw the strange patterns flowing across the display. "How long has this been coming in?" he asked. "About 10 minutes now, sir. The computer says it's coming from the direction of the Vega system, but much further out. Maybe 40 light years away." Captain Burke studied the data for a few moments. "This is way above our level. I'm calling Admiral Morrison at headquarters." While Captain Burke made his call, Lisa continued to analyze the signal. The computer was trying different approaches to decode the message, but nothing was working. The language, if it was a language, was completely alien. 2 hours later, the monitoring room was crowded with people. Admiral Kate Morrison had arrived, with a team of scientists and communication experts. Dr. Amy Foster, the base's linguistics specialist, was working frantically with the new artificial intelligence system designed to crack unknown codes. "The signal has been repeating the same message for over 3 hours now," Dr. Foster explained to Admiral Morrison. "The AI is learning the patterns, but it's unlike any human language structure." Admiral Morrison was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She had commanded Earth's defense forces for 8 years and had always known this day might come. "How long until we can understand what they're saying?" "The AI needs more data to establish patterns. Maybe another few hours," Dr. Foster replied. Everyone in the room waited tensely as the computer worked. The signal continued to stream in from deep space, carrying its mysterious message. Lisa felt a mix of excitement and fear. This was the most important moment in human history, and she had been the first to detect it. At dawn, Dr. Foster suddenly looked up from her computer with wide eyes. "I think we've got something. The AI has identified what appears to be a distress pattern." She played the decoded message through the speakers. A strange, musical voice filled the room, speaking words that the computer translated into English. Text on the screen. "People of the galaxy, we are the Cathara of the 3rd planet of Zephyr system. Our world is under attack by the Vorthak Empire. They are destroying our cities and killing our people. We have tried to fight, but we are not warriors. Our ships are weak and our weapons are few. Soon we will all be dead." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the words. An alien civilization was crying out for help. The voice continued. "We send this message to all who might hear. We know there are others among the stars." The Vorthak commander laughed when we said we would call for help. He said no one would come for a weak species like us, but we have heard stories. Stories of the Deathworlders who fight when others cannot. Surely the Deathworlders will not abandon us to extinction. Admiral Morrison looked puzzled. Deathworlders, what does that mean? Dr. Foster was still working with the translation. The computer isn't sure. It seems to be a term they use for us, for humans, but I don't understand why they would call us that. The message continued with coordinates to their home system and technical data about their attackers. The Kithera were clearly desperate. Their world was dying and they were calling out to anyone who might help them. Admiral, Captain Burke said quietly, their system is 47 light-years away. Our fastest ships could get there in about 3 weeks. Admiral Morrison stood silently for several minutes, thinking. The weight of the decision pressed down on her shoulders. This would be humanity's first contact with alien life, and it was a call for help from a dying civilization. Get me President Martinez on secure communication, she finally said, and prepare the data package for immediate transmission to Earth Defense Headquarters. It looks like we're going to war. Lisa watched as the room erupted into activity. Scientists copied data, communication officers sent urgent messages, and military personnel began making plans. The peaceful night shift had become the beginning of humanity's first interstellar conflict. The alien message continued to repeat, carrying its desperate plea across the empty space between stars. Somewhere far away, an entire species waited to see if the mysterious Deathworlders would answer their call. The news traveled fast across the galaxy. On Trade Station Nexus 7, floating in neutral space between 3 major star systems, aliens from dozens of worlds gathered to discuss the rumors that had spread through subspace communications like wildfire. Ambassador Zektor of the Hegemony Council walked quickly through the station's main corridor, his forearms carrying data tablets while his aide Paulwyn struggled to keep up. The tall, thin ambassador had blue skin and large black eyes that never seemed to blink. His species, the Velthari, had been part of galactic civilization for over 2,000 years. Ambassador, slow down, please, Paulwyn called out, his shorter, legs working hard to match his superior's pace. The council meeting is not for another hour. Zektar stopped suddenly and turned to face his aide. You do not understand the importance of what is happening. The Deathworlders have finally moved. After decades of watching from their isolated corner of space, they have launched ships toward Kithera territory. Paulwyn looked confused. Deathworlders, sir? I thought those were just stories to frighten children. Come with me, Zektar said, leading his aide into a quiet side chamber. He activated a privacy field and pulled out a classified data tablet. What I am about to show you is restricted information that only council members are allowed to see. The tablet displayed images of a blue and green planet with white clouds swirling around it. This is Earth, the home world of the humans. For 30 years, our long-range scouts have been studying them from a safe distance. Paulwyn looked at the beautiful planet on the screen. It looks peaceful enough. Why do we call them Deathworlders? Zektar swiped to the next screen, showing detailed environmental data. Look at these readings. The planet's surface gravity is twice what most civilized species can handle. The weather systems are incredibly violent, with storms that can destroy entire cities. The oceans are filled with salt that would poison most of us. That does sound harsh, Paulwyn admitted. That is only the beginning, Zektar continued, showing more data. The planet experiences ice ages that last thousands of years. The ground shakes regularly from tectonic activity. The atmosphere contains oxygen levels that would be toxic to many species. And the life forms. The next images showed Earth's predators, lions hunting in packs, sharks in the oceans, bears that could crush bones with their claws. Most planets develop intelligent life from herbivores that learn to cooperate. Earth produced intelligence from hunters. Humans are predators that learn to think. Paulwyn stared at the images in horror. How did any intelligent species survive on such a world? That is exactly what makes them so dangerous, Zektar explained. They did not just survive. They conquered their planet completely. They learned to work together while keeping their predator instincts. They are fast, strong, and aggressive. Most importantly, they do not give up when faced with impossible odds. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, a group of traders from different worlds sat around a table in the main cantina. News of the human fleet had reached every corner of the galaxy. Brentok, a large reptilian creature from the Saros system, slammed his drink down on the table. I say the humans will take the Kythera world for themselves. Why else would predators travel so far? You are wrong, said Yilna, a small furry being with large ears. My people have studied the human broadcasts for years. They help each other, even when there is no benefit. They have something called compassion. Korvesh, whose species look like walking plants, disagreed. Compassion is a weakness that evolution removes. No species becomes dominant through kindness. The humans must want something from Kythera space. The argument continued as more aliens joined the discussion. Some believed the humans would be saviors. Others thought they would be conquerors. None of them had ever encountered a species quite like humanity. On the other side of the galaxy, on the dying world of Kythera Prime, Elder Sindara stood on what remained of her city's highest tower. Smoke rose from buildings destroyed by the latest Vorthak bombardment. Her people, tall and graceful with pale blue skin and large silver eyes, moved slowly through the ruins. The Kythera were plant-eaters who had never known war until the Vorthak arrived. Their society was built on art, music, and philosophy. They had no weapons of war, only tools for building and creating. When the Vorthak fleet appeared in their sky, demanding surrender, the Kythera barely understood what was happening. Elder, called Genaris, one of the younger Kythera who served as a communication officer. We have received a response to our message. Sindara turned quickly. From whom? The Hegemony Council said they could not help us. No, Elder. The message came from the Deathworlders themselves. They said they received our call and are coming to help us. Sindara felt her heart skip a beat. The Deathworlders were real. She had heard whispers and legends about the mysterious warriors from the edge of known space, but many believed they were just stories. When will they arrive? She asked. Their message said 3 weeks, Elder. But... Genaris hesitated. But, what? The Vorthak intercepted the message. They are laughing. Commander Vraktul sent us a transmission saying that no one in the galaxy is foolish enough to fight the Vorthak Empire. He said even if the Deathworlders are real, they will take one look at our fleet and leave. Sindara walked to the window and looked up at the sky where Vorthak ships continued their slow destruction of her world. Commander Vraktul does not understand. The stories say that Deathworlders do not abandon those in need, they fight when others cannot. Back on Trade Station Nexus 7, Ambassador Zektar was addressing an emergency session of alien representatives. The large meeting hall was filled with creatures of all shapes and sizes, all discussing the same topic. The humans have responded to the Kythera distress call, Zektar announced. Intelligence reports suggest they have launched a significant fleet toward the conflict zone. A murmur went through the crowd. Many species were placing bets on what would happen when the humans arrived. What do we know about human military capabilities? Asked Ambassador Thexral of the Crystalline Confederation. Zektar consulted his data tablet. Very little. They have never engaged in large-scale warfare since joining spacefaring civilization. However, our analysis of their technology suggests it is comparable to most galactic powers. What concerns us is their unpredictability. Unpredictability? Thexral questioned. Most civilized species conduct warfare according to established rules and traditions. We negotiate, we posture, we fight limited engagements with clear objectives. Humans evolved from predators. They might not follow our rules. As the debate continued in the meeting hall, subspace communications carried the news to every corner of known space. The Deathworlders were coming. Soon the galaxy would learn whether the legends were true. Admiral Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the EDS Defiance, watching the stars shift back to normal as his fleet dropped out of hyperspace. The journey had taken exactly 21 days, and now they were at the edge of the Kythera system. What he saw through the main viewer made his jaw clench with anger. Report. he ordered Lieutenant Commander Ben Parker, his tactical officer. Ben's fingers moved quickly across his console as he analyzed the sensor data. Sir, I count 43 Vorthak vessels in the system. Most are concentrated around the fourth planet, which appears to be the Kethera homeworld. They're conducting systematic orbital bombardment. Show me, Sullivan said. The main screen changed to display the Kethera system. The beautiful blue-green planet that was home to billions of peaceful aliens was surrounded by dark ships that rained destruction down on its surface. Smaller Kethera vessels, clearly not designed for war, fled desperately from pursuing Vorthak hunters. My God, whispered Captain Nicole Grant, who had just arrived on the bridge. Her ship, the EDS Shadow, was the fleet's stealth reconnaissance vessel. They're not just conquering the planet, they're exterminating everything. Sullivan nodded, grimly. Get me a communication channel to the surviving Kethara leadership, and I want a full tactical analysis of the Vorthak fleet. Dr. Amy Foster, who had joined the fleet as their alien contact specialist, worked at her station to establish communication. After several minutes, she looked up with excitement. Admiral, I have Elder Sindara of the Kethera Council on the RA line. She's the senior leader of their government. Put her through, Sullivan ordered. The main screen showed a tall, graceful alien with pale blue skin and large silver eyes. Despite the obvious exhaustion and fear on her face, she carried herself with dignity. Behind her, human eyes could see the ruins of what had once been a beautiful city. I am Admiral Jake Sullivan of the Earth Defense Fleet, he said clearly. We received your distress call. Elder Sindara's eyes went wide with amazement. You came. The Deathworlders actually came. Her voice was musical even through the translation software. I confess, Admiral Sullivan, many of my people believed you were only legends. We're very real, Elder, and we're here to help. Can you tell me about the Vorthak forces and their tactics? Sindara nodded quickly. The Vorthak arrived 6 months ago, demanding our immediate surrender. When we tried to negotiate, they began bombing our cities. They have told us they plan to kill every Kethara and take our world for their empire. Dr. Foster leaned forward. Elder Sindara, why did your message call us Deathworlders? We don't understand that term. Oh. Sindara looked surprised. You do not know your own reputation? Across the galaxy, there are stories of the fierce warriors from the deadly world at the edge of known space. Beings who evolved on a planet so dangerous that they became the most formidable fighters in existence. The legends say you fight for justice and protect the weak. Sullivan exchanged glances with his officers. Earth's reputation had grown far beyond what any human had imagined. Elder, can you provide us with tactical information about Vorthak military doctrine? Ben Parker asked. I will share everything we know, Sindara replied. The Vorthak fight in rigid formations. They prefer overwhelming firepower and direct assault. They have never faced serious resistance, so their tactics are untested against equal forces. They believe strength comes only from large numbers and big weapons. Captain Grant spoke up. What about their treatment of prisoners or civilians? Sindar's expression darkened. They take no prisoners. Vorthak doctrine calls for complete elimination of conquered species. They consider other life forms to be obstacles to their expansion. Sullivan felt cold anger building in his chest. These were not just conquerors, but genocidal killers. How much time do your people have? Perhaps days, Sindara said sadly. Our population centers are almost destroyed. Most of our ships are gone. The Vorthak commander sent us a message saying they will finish their bombardment by the end of this week. That won't happen, Sullivan said firmly. We're going to stop them. After ending the communication with the Kethera, Sullivan called his senior officers to the briefing room. Captain Grant had already sent her stealth ship to scout the Vorthak positions and was ready with her report. The enemy fleet is spread throughout the system, she began, displaying tactical data on the room's hologram projector. Their command ship is a massive battlecruiser positioned directly over the Kethera capital. They have heavy cruisers at each of the system's major planets and destroyers conducting the bombardment. Ben Parker studied the formation. They're not expecting any real resistance. Look at their positioning. They're optimized for ground attack, not fleet combat. Their ships are spread too thin to support each other effectively. Dr. Foster had been analyzing the cultural data from their communication with the Cathara. Admiral, I think we're dealing with a species that has never encountered serious opposition. The Vorthak have probably been conquering peaceful civilizations for generations. They don't know how to fight real warriors. Sullivan looked around, the table at his officers. Recommendations? Hit them hard and fast, Captain Grant said immediately. Their formation is designed to intimidate civilians, not fight military forces. If we strike multiple points simultaneously, they won't be able to coordinate a response. I agree, Ben added. But we should be prepared for them to use the Cathara civilians as shields. Most species would be forced to back down when faced with hostage situations. Sullivan stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the distant Cathara world. They don't know us very well, do they? Human military doctrine has one simple rule when dealing with hostage takers and genocidal killers. What's that, sir? Dr. Foster asked. Sullivan turned back to his officers with a hard smile. We don't negotiate with terrorists, and we don't abandon people who need our help. He walked back to the table. Ben, I want attack plans for 3 different scenarios. Nicole, get your stealth ships in position to gather real-time intelligence during the battle. Amy, draft a surrender demand for the Vorthak commander. What should the surrender terms include? Dr. Foster asked. Simple. Immediate withdrawal from Cathara space and an end to hostilities. If they refuse, they'll learn why the galaxy calls us Deathworlders. Ben looked up from his tactical display. Admiral, we're outnumbered almost 2 to 1. Are you sure about this? Sullivan smiled, and for the first time his officers understood why other species might find humans frightening. Lieutenant Commander, humans have been fighting against impossible odds since we climbed down from the trees. Numbers don't scare us. Besides, they're not fighting humans. They're fighting predators who learned to build starships. As the human fleet moved into position, subspace communications carried news of their arrival throughout the galaxy. The Deathworlders had come to Cathara space, and soon everyone would learn whether the legends were true. The Vorthak response to Admiral Sullivan's surrender demand came within an hour. Commander Vraktul's ugly face filled the communication screen of the EDS Defiance, his reptilian features twisted in what humans could only assume was amusement. So, the legendary Deathworlders finally show themselves, Vraktul hissed through his translator. 43 ships against 18 primitive vessels. Your reputation has been greatly exaggerated. Admiral Sullivan stood calmly on his bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. Commander Vraktul, this is your final warning. Withdraw from Cathara space immediately or face the consequences. Vraktul's laughter was a harsh sound that made several human officers wince. You amuse me, human. We have been conquering worlds for 300 years. Your little fleet will be destroyed, and then we will finish cleansing this system. Perhaps we will keep a few humans alive to study your stupidity. The communication ended abruptly. Sullivan turned to his tactical officer. Ben, execute Attack Plan Alpha. All ships are weapons-free. Yes, sir, Lieutenant Commander Ben Parker replied, his fingers already working across his console. All ships, this is Fleet Command. Operation begins now. Captain Alex Turner commanded the heavy cruiser EDS Retribution, positioned on the fleet's right flank. His ship was one of Earth's most powerful warships built for exactly this kind of fight. All hands, this is the captain. Battle stations. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten innocent people. The human attack began with surgical precision. Unlike the Vorthak's rigid formations, the human fleet moved like a pack of wolves. Ships split off in different directions, using unpredictable flight patterns that confused Vorthak targeting computers. Captain Nicole Grant's stealth destroyer EDS Shadow had already infiltrated the enemy perimeter. Her ship appeared suddenly behind a Vorthak heavy cruiser and launched a full spread of torpedoes before disappearing again into the darkness. The enemy ship exploded in a brilliant flash. First blood to the Shadow, Ben Parker announced on the fleet communication channel. But the real shock came when the Vorthak tried to use their standard intimidation tactic. Commander Vraktul ordered several of his ships to position themselves directly over Cathara refugee camps, threatening to destroy millions of civilians if the humans continued their attack. Human fleet, cease your assault immediately, or we will begin executing the Cathara population, Vraktul transmitted. On any other species, this would have worked. Galactic warfare had rules about protecting civilians. Most civilized races would negotiate rather than risk innocent lives. Admiral Sullivan's response surprised everyone, including his own officers. All ships, continue the attack. Implement Deathworld protocols immediately. Sir? Ben Parker looked confused. Deathworld protocols? Marines to assault shuttles. We're boarding their ships. The Vorthak had never encountered anything like what happened next. Human assault shuttles, small and fast, launched from the fleet and headed directly toward enemy vessels. The shuttles flew through space battles like angry insects, dodging weapons fire that should have destroyed them. Colonel Dan Murphy led the first boarding party toward the Vorthak flagship. His shuttle pilot, Lieutenant Tony Brooks, flew through laser fire and missile explosions as if he was driving through a thunderstorm. 30 seconds to contact, Brooks called over the communication system. Colonel Murphy checked his equipment one final time. Human Marines wore powered armor that made them look like mechanical demons. They carried weapons designed for close combat and were trained to fight in the cramped corridors of enemy ships. Remember, Marines, Murphy said to his team. These aliens have been killing innocent people for months. Show them what Earth's children can do when we're angry. The boarding action that followed became legend throughout the galaxy. Human Marines cut through Vorthak hull plating with plasma torches and poured into enemy ships like a flood of destruction. The Vorthak had never fought anyone who would board ships during active combat. Sergeant Linda Ross led her squad through the corridors of a Vorthak destroyer. The enemy soldiers were larger than humans but moved slowly and fought without coordination. Linda's squad moved like dancers, covering each other and flowing around obstacles. Contact front, called Corporal Jim Davis as Vorthak soldiers appeared, around a corner. The aliens wore heavy armor and carried energy weapons, but they fought like individuals instead of a team. The human squad worked together perfectly. While Jim and two others provided covering fire, Linda and the rest of her team flanked the enemy position. Within minutes, the corridor was clear. Vorthak engineering secured, Linda reported over her radio. Moving toward the bridge. Throughout the battle, human tactics continued to confuse and overwhelm the enemy. Commander Sarah Blake led her fighter squadron in attacks that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Her pilots flew in patterns based on hunting behaviors from Earth, surrounding enemy ships and striking from multiple directions. Captain Greg Stone's destroyer EDS Vengeance attempted something that Vorthak computers classified as a sensor error rather than an intentional attack. His ship accelerated directly toward a Vorthak cruiser at maximum speed. "Sir, are you planning to ram them?" his first officer asked nervously. "Sometimes the direct approach is the best approach," Stone replied calmly. At the last second, the EDS Vengeance fired all weapons at point-blank range and used emergency thrusters to barely avoid collision. The Vorthak cruiser was torn apart by weapons fire it never saw coming. The boarding of the Vorthak flagship was led by Sergeant Linda, Ross's squad, who had fought their way through 3 decks of enemy resistance. When they finally reached the bridge, they found Commander Vraktul surrounded by his officers. "Surrender now and your crew will be treated according to galactic conventions," Linda announced, her weapon trained on the Vorthak commander. Vraktul looked around at his bridge, now controlled by a handful of human soldiers who had somehow fought through his entire ship. "This is impossible. How did so few defeat so many?" "Simple," Linda replied. "You've been fighting herbivores and prey, animals your whole career. Today you met some predators." The battle lasted exactly 6 hours and 12 minutes. When it was over, the Vorthak fleet was completely destroyed or captured. Not a single human ship was lost, though several were damaged. Admiral Sullivan stood on his bridge, watching the last Vorthak vessel surrender. Around the Kithara homeworld, human medical ships were already moving into position to help with rescue operations. "Signal from Elder Sindara," Dr. Amy Foster announced. The Kithara leader appeared on screen, tears streaming down her face. "Admiral Sullivan, My people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You have saved our entire civilization." Sullivan nodded respectfully. "Elder, it was our honor to help. No species should face extinction while others have the power to prevent it." As news of the battle spread across the galaxy, military analysts struggled to understand how humans had achieved such a complete victory. The answer was simple but terrifying to most galactic civilizations. Humans didn't just fight wars. They hunted their enemies with the same instincts their ancestors had used to survive on the deadliest planet in known space. And once they decided to protect someone, they would fight with a ferocity that no civilized species could match. The Deathworlders had announced their arrival on the galactic stage, and the galaxy would never be the same. 1 week after the battle, Admiral Jake Sullivan walked through the ruins of Kythera Prime's capital city. Human engineers worked alongside Kythera civilians to clear debris and rebuild damaged structures. Medical teams from Earth had set up emergency hospitals to treat the wounded, while supply ships delivered food and clean water to refugee camps. Elder Sindara met Sullivan at what had once been the city's central plaza. The beautiful crystal gardens that the Kythera had built, they were mostly destroyed, but small groups of both species worked together to plant new ones. "Admiral," Sindara said, bowing in the formal Kythera greeting, "I wanted to thank you personally for what your people have done. Not just the battle, but this." She gestured to the humans helping with reconstruction. Sullivan looked around at his people working without being ordered to help. "Elder, this is just what humans do. When we see people in need, we help them." "That is what confuses my advisors," Sindara admitted. "We have studied galactic history for generations. Most species help others only when they gain something in return. Your people risk their lives for strangers and ask for nothing." Dr. Amy Foster approached them, carrying a data tablet filled with reports from around the system. "Admiral, I have the latest communication intercepts from across the galaxy. The news about our victory has reached every major civilization." "What are they saying?" Sullivan asked. Amy smiled. "It's quite something. 3 different species have already sent formal requests for protection agreements. The Hegemony Council has invited Earth to join as a founding member of something they're calling the Galactic Protection Force. And..." She paused, looking at her tablet with amazement. 17 different civilizations have sent distress calls specifically asking for human assistance. Sullivan rubbed his forehead. 17? What kind of problems are they facing? Pirates, aggressive neighbors, civil wars, natural disasters. It seems like everyone who has a problem now wants the Deathworlders to solve it for them. Elder Sindara looked thoughtful. "Admiral, may I ask you something? Why did your people really come to help us? Your government must have known this would change everything for humanity." Sullivan was quiet for a moment, watching a human medic teaching a young Kythera child how to bandage wounds. "Elder, on Earth we have a saying, evil triumphs when good people do nothing. Your people were dying, and we had the power to stop it. That made it our responsibility." "Responsibility," Sindara repeated the word slowly. "In our language, we have no exact translation for that concept as you use it. The closest word means obligation to family." "Well," Sullivan said with a small smile, "maybe that's the difference. Humans consider all intelligent life to be family." Captain Ryan Burke, who had come down from the fleet to serve as diplomatic liaison, joined the group with news from Earth. "Admiral, I have a priority message from President Martinez. She wants to speak with you immediately." Sullivan nodded and followed Burke to the temporary communication center the humans had set up. The large screen showed President Helen Martinez in the Oval Office surrounded by her advisors. "Admiral Sullivan," the president began, "congratulations on your victory. The entire world is proud of what you and your fleet accomplished, but we need to discuss the situation you've created." "Yes, ma'am. I understand we've received quite a few requests for assistance." President Martinez nodded. "That's putting it mildly. Every major government on Earth is asking the same question, what do we do now? Overnight, we've become the galaxy's emergency response service. What are your orders, ma'am?" The president looked tired but determined. Congress has authorized the construction of humanity's first permanent deep space fleet. We're calling it the Galactic Defense Force. Your mission will be to respond to legitimate calls for help from species that cannot defend themselves. That's a big responsibility, Sullivan said. Yes, it is. But after seeing what you accomplished at Kythera, we believe humanity is ready for it. The galaxy needs guardians, Admiral, and it appears we're the only species willing to take on that role. After the communication ended, Sullivan walked back outside where Lieutenant Amy Chen was monitoring long-range communications from her mobile station. She looked up as he approached. Admiral, you need to hear this. I've been tracking subspace, chatter from across the galaxy. The story of what happened here is spreading faster than we thought possible. What are they saying? Amy adjusted her equipment and played several translated conversations. Alien voices filled the air, speaking in dozens of different languages that the computer converted to English. The Deathworlders came from nowhere and destroyed the entire Vorthak fleet in hours. They boarded enemy ships during active combat. Who does that? The humans didn't even negotiate. They just attacked anyone who threatened innocent people. My trading partner says the Kythera are calling it the Day of Salvation. Amy turned off the recordings. Admiral, there's something else. The phrase, "don't make us call the humans," has become common slang across the galaxy. Aggressive species are using it to threaten each other. Sullivan laughed, despite himself. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. Oh, it gets better, Amy continued. The Vorthak Empire has issued a formal apology to the galactic community and announced they're withdrawing from all conquered territories. Apparently, the idea of fighting humans again terrifies them. That evening, Sullivan stood on a hill overlooking the Kythera capital as the sun set. Elder Sindara joined him along with several human officers and Kythera officials. Admiral, Sindara said quietly, what will happen to my people now? We are not warriors. We cannot protect ourselves if others like the Vorthak come. You won't face them alone, Sullivan replied. Humanity doesn't abandon its friends. Doctor? Foster had been studying Kythera culture and had an idea. Elder, your people are natural artists and philosophers. The galaxy needs that just as much as it needs protection. Perhaps humans can provide security while the Kythera provide wisdom and beauty. A partnership? Sindara asked. More than that, Sullivan said. A new way of doing things in the galaxy. Instead of every species fighting alone, we work together. The strong protect the weak, and everyone contributes what they do best. Lieutenant Amy Chen received another communication and hurried up the hill to join them. Admiral, I have an urgent message from the Hegemony Council. They're formally requesting that Earth establish a permanent peacekeeping force in this sector of space. What did you tell them? I told them I would pass along their request, sir. Sullivan looked up at the stars where human ships patrolled. The system and alien vessels brought supplies and aid to the recovering Kythera. Amy, send a message to President Martinez. Tell her that Admiral Sullivan recommends we accept the Council's proposal. Yes, sir. And Admiral? What is it? There are 6 more distress calls waiting for our response, all of them specifically asking for human assistance. Sullivan smiled and put his hand on Elder Sindara's shoulder. Looks like we're going to be busy. As the months passed, the story of the Kythera rescue became the foundation myth of a new era in galactic civilization. Human ships patrolled the space lanes, protecting merchant vessels from pirates. Human marines stood guard on peaceful worlds threatened by aggressive neighbors. And everywhere they went, the Deathworlders brought with them a simple message. In the vast darkness of space, no one had to face extinction alone. The galaxy finally had guardians who would answer when the innocent called for help. On Kythera Prime, children learned to sing songs about the day the Deathworlders came from beyond, the void, not as conquerors but as saviors. And across the galaxy, a new phrase entered every language. Don't make us call the humans.